everyone, I'm back with my next video on the chapter In the Kingdom of Fools. This is for the children of class 9 and this is the 4th chapter of the book Moments. This is basically a very humorous chapter, as we can even see from the title, In the Kingdom of Fools. So this will definitely make you laugh and you are going to be in splits. So let us quickly start. It is believed that fools are so dangerous that only very wise people can manage them. Who are the fools in this story? What happens to them? I promise you, you are going to end laughing. So let's continue. I'm not going to waste any time. In the kingdom of fools, both the king and the ministers were idiots. They didn't want to run things like the other kings. So they decided to change the day into night and night into day. So very foolish. The day to be lived as night and night as day. They ordered that everyone should be awake at night till their fields, work on the fields at night and run their businesses only when it gets dark and go to bed as soon as the sun came up. Anyone who disobeyed would be punished with death. Now this was so very funny. They had to do what? They had to work at night, shops to be opened at night, all the farmers would go to the field at night, every business had to be done at night, and when the sun came up, they would all go back to sleep. And if anybody did not agree with this, they would be punished. They would be punished to death. The people did as they were told for the fear of death. The king and the minister were delighted at the success of their project. One day, a guru and his disciple, what is a disciple? Guru and Shishya, arrived in this city. It was a beautiful city. It was broad daylight, but there was no one about. Everyone asleep. Not a mouse was stirring. Nothing was out. Everybody had trained all the animals also to to sleep during the daytime. This was so funny. But this guru and disciple, when they came to this city, they found this was very strange. Even the cattle had been taught to sleep by the day. The two strangers were amazed by what they saw around them and wandered. They went around till evening, when suddenly the whole town woke up and went about with their nightly business. Now this was so funny that whole evening they kept wandering, going here and there, and suddenly when it became dark, everybody started coming out of their houses. Animals were out, people were out, farmers were going to till their fields, and people opened their shops, and this was really very different and strange for the guru and disciple. The two men, the guru and disciple, two men, were hungry. Now that the shops were open, they went to buy some groceries. Now they wanted to buy some things to cook and eat. To their astonishment, they found that everything cost the same. And what was that? A single doo-doo. Now this was so strange. Everything, be it rice, be it banana, be it anything else, even the expensive ghee that we make, everything costed the same. That was one doo-doo. Whether they bought a measure of rice or a bunch of bananas, it cost a doo-doo. The guru and His disciples were delighted. They had never heard of anything of this sort. They could buy all the food that they wanted in 1 rupee. When they had cooked and eaten, now this guru and disciple, this was a new experience for them, something very strange, and they were shocked to see that everything costed same. Because if you go and buy oil, and the other thing that you buy is ghee, so ghee is more expensive than oil. If you go and buy rice, and you go and you have to buy bananas also, they don't cost the same. The cost of both the things is different. But here everything was same. So the guru realized that they were where? They were in the kingdom of fools. When the day was to be lived like night, and night, like a day, farmers going to their ground and to work on the fields at night, in dark, animals to be out at night, shops. I mean, what was this? And plus, why did the king do something for the economy? How could everything be on one, cost only one do? So they were really felt that this was something strange. When they had eaten, the guru realized that this was a kingdom of fools and it wouldn't be a good idea for them to stay here. So the guru was very, very knowledgeable, and he felt that this is not the right place that we are in. This is a kingdom of fools, and staying here will make me foolish too. It was not correct to stay here. This is no place for us. Let us go. So he told his disciple. But the disciple didn't want to leave this place. Everything was cheap here. All that he wanted was food and cheap food. The guru said, they all are fools. This won't last long, and you can't tell what they will do next and do to you next. So the guru, thought and said, see, we people are the most knowledgeable. They are all fools. The people who are making these rules and the people who are following. And you never know in this kingdom of fools what will happen next, what they might do to you. So the guru decided that he would not stay here. But the disciple wouldn't listen to the guru's wisdom. Guru was very wise, but the disciple was not ready to listen. He wanted to stay. The guru finally gave up and said, do whatever you want. I am going. The disciple stayed on. The disciple said, all right, I will not go. The disciple was a greedy person. He wanted a lot of good food, and everything was so cheap, just one single doo-doo. So the disciple said, I would not go. And the disciple stayed on, and he ate his fill. He used to eat a lot, ate his fill. He used to eat a lot. Bananas and ghee and rice, wheat, whatever he wanted, and he grew fat like a street side sacred bull. A sacred bull, a buffalo or a bull who's standing outside the temple. People come and feed them with chapatis and feed them with the dough of the flour and what all they do, and the sacred bull keeps eating and eating, and it's this big fat, So the disciple too became very fat. Now this was the base of the story. Now let us see what happened. One bright day, a thief broke into a rich merchant's house. He had made a hole in the wall and sneaked in. And as he was carrying out his loot, the wall of the old house collapsed on his head and killed him on the spot. His brother ran to the king and complained. Now what happened was, there was a burglar. A burglar wanted to burgle, that is loot, that is to steal things. Alright, by breaking into the house, that is burglary. What is theft? When you go quietly into that house somehow without breaking anything and steal things and then go out softly. But burglars are people who destroy things, who break things and then they move in. So he made a hole in the wall of the fence and went in, and he looted everything, and when he was coming out with the loot, the wall that he had made a hole in fell on him and he fell down on the spot. Now, when the brother of the thief, of the burglar, came to know, he ran to the king and complained, "Your Highness, when my brother was pursuing was going after his ancient trade, a wall fell on him and killed him. This merchant is to be blamed. He should have built a good strong wall. You must punish the wrongdoer and compensate the family for this injustice." Now this brother said, "See, I want justice and I want compensation. So please call this merchant. His wall was weak. He should have built a strong wall." Such foolish thing was happening here. The king also did not think about the burglary that took place. He did not punish the person that your brother was a burglar. No. He was a foolish king. This did not strike him. So what struck him was that this brother of this man was coming out after looting and the wall fell on him and he died. So the person to be blamed was the merchant, because it was the wall of his house. Let us see. The king said, "Justice will be done. Don't worry." And at once summoned the owner of the house. So the merchant was called. When the merchant arrived, the king questioned him, "What is your name?" "Such and such, Your Highness." Now his name was not such and such. That means we don't require his name. It is not important. So he must have told his name. "Were you at home when the dead man burgled your house?" "Yes, my lord. He broke in and the wall was weak and it fell on him." The accused pleads guilty. "Your wall killed the man's brother. You have murdered his brother. You have to be punished. We have to punish you." They did not think about the burglary that took place. And moreover, that wall, the hole was made by this burglar only. That is why it must have become very loose and weak. Anyways, "Lord," said the helpless merchant, "I did not put up the wall. I have not made that wall. So why should I be punished? It's really the fault of the man who built the wall." Who builds? A bricklayer, that we call a mason or a mistri. Alright, he didn't build it right. You should punish him. So he was the person who built. So call him and punish him. I did not do anything. The king said, "Alright, who is that?" "My lord, this wall was built in my father's time. I know the man. He's an old man and he lives nearby my house." So he says, "See, I did not make this house. This house and this wall was made when my father was alive, and the bricklayer had made it during his lifetime. So the bricklayer is to be blamed, and I know he lives near my house." "You there." Alright, the king sent out his messengers to bring the bricklayer who had built the wall. They brought him, tied hand and foot. He must have questioned, "Why should I go?" and all that. He was now an old man. So the messengers, they tied his feet, they tied his hands, and they picked him and brought him to the king. The king said, "You there, you build the wall of this man's, you build this man's wall during his father's time?" He looked at the man and said, "Yes, I did." "What kind of wall is that you built?" "It has fallen on a poor man and killed him." No, he was not a poor man. He was a burglar. But because king is a fool. So he said, "It fell on him and you have murdered him. We have to punish you by death." Now the old man was again in thoughts. The bricklayer, what to do? How to save myself? Before the king could order his execution, that to hang him, till death, the poor bricklayer pleaded. Now before even he could announce a sentence of his death, the poor bricklayer, pleaded, he requested, he begged. "Please listen to me before you give your orders. It's true I built the wall and it was of no good. So he is confessing now. But that was because my mind was not on it. I remember very well a dancing girl who was going up and down the street all day with anklets jingling. So he said, see, that wall was not good because I did not make it with my heart. Why? Because I was distracted by a dancing girl. That day when I was making that wall, a dancing girl who was wearing anklets and her anklets were jiggling. What are anklets? Ghungru or pajeb, whatever the women of India wear. Some people outside also wear. So he said that this girl was moving now and again on the street to and fro with those anklets jingling and she was distracting me. So I was not able to make a good wall. You are right. The case deepens. We must look into it. It is not easy to judge a very complicated case. So, the king said, all right, this is a very complicated case and yes, I cannot make a judgment just, like that. Let's get that dancer, that dancing girl, wherever she is. The dancing girl, now she had become old. She came trembling to the court and she was very worried and she said, I have not done anything, and she was trembling, with fear. Did you walk up and down the street when this man was making a wall? While this poor man was building a wall, did you see him? She looked at the man and she said, yes, my lord, I remember it very well. So you did walk up and down with your anklets jingling. You are young and those anklets of yours, and you distracted this man, and because of you he built a bad wall. It has fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. You have killed an innocent man. You have to be punished. Now the dancing girl was accused. She thought for a minute and said, my lord, wait. I know now why I was walking. She said, I remember now why I was walking up and down the street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make me some jewelry. He was a lazy scoundrel. He made so many excuses that he would give it to me now and he would give it to me then. So on the whole day, this girl was moving up and down from goldsmith's house, shop to her house, then back to goldsmith, then to her house. So the whole day she was doing this because the goldsmith was a lady scoundrel and he had not made the jewelry that she had wanted. That was when the bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It is damn that goldsmith's fault. One after the other, the blame is passing on from one to another. In the beginning, the burglar's brother went to the king and complained against the merchant. The merchant complained against the bricklayer. The bricklayer complained against the dancing girl. The dancing girl blamed the goldsmith. Let us see what the goldsmith says. Poor thing, she's absolutely right, thought the king, weighing the evidence. Now the king thought and said, all right, the goldsmith was troubling her and so she was moving. She's right. We have got the real culprit. Get the goldsmith at once, wherever he is hiding. At once. And the king ordered. The king's bailiffs are who? Messengers, searched for the goldsmith who was hiding in a corner of the shop. Now till now, the shopkeeper had come to know that there is a lot of, this going on in the king's court and you are being asked for. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. So when he heard, oh my God, everything is on me, so he had another reasons to give. What did he say? My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come up and down many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I was making someone else's jewelry. I finished the rich merchant's order. So he said, I was very busy. I had the rich merchant's offer. I was completing that. That is why I was not able to give her jewelry on time and she had to do up and down. They had a wedding coming. So he says, I was doing that rich merchant's work because they had a wedding in the house and I had to give everything because the wedding was that had come. You know how impatient rich men are, and the goldsmith says, see, I am a poor goldsmith. But do you know how impatient these rich people are? They keep, sending messages that they want their jewelry. Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's work? Made her walk up and down, which distracted the bricklayer, and he did not make a correct wall, and because of which the wall fell on the burglar and the burglar died, and that is why this whole case is being, called for and heard. So now the goldsmith had to tell who the bricklayer was. Can you name him? The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. So the original merchant's house whose wall had fallen, he was the person who had given the goldsmith a lot of jewelry to be made when a marriage was to take place. And so the dancer had to go up and down, and she, with her anklets jingling, and she had distracted the bricklayer. The bricklayer had got distracted and he couldn't make a good wall, and because the wall was not good, so it fell on the burglar who died. Alright, so this is such a funny thing. Now let us see what happens. The goldsmith named the merchant and the merchant was brought. Now justice has come full circle. So the king says, see, we started from you and we have come back to you. It has taken a full circle. Just see. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived saying, it wasn't me, but my father who had ordered for the jewelry. He said, see, I was a young boy at that time. What would I do with the jewelry? My father had ordered the jewelry which this goldsmith was making. He is dead. Now the father is dead and I am innocent. What is my fault? But the king consulted his ministers and said, it's true, your father is a true murderer. He said, all right, we agree that it is all because of your father this happened. So he is the true murderer. He is dead. But somebody must be punished in his place. He is already dead. But I have to punish someone because I have to give justice. You have inherited everything that your criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. So he says, see, now you are living in your father's house. You have all his riches, whatever he had saved. So if you have inherited, if you have taken up after his death, his house, his property and everything that is there in the house, then the sins that he had committed, you have to bear for it. You have to inherit that too. Now what should he do? Let us see. It's true your father is a true murderer. You have inherited everything from the criminal father of yours and his riches as well as his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the foot of this horrible crime. So, the king says, see, first also we had called you and I knew somehow that it is you to be blamed. You are the person who is actually a criminal. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for execution. A stake is a wooden structure over which you are hanged. The person is hanged and executed whenever there is a fault and they want to, so they hang the person. As the servants sharpened the stake, now what was the next week? What was the next thing? They were sharpening the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal. Now everything was ready and he had to be hanged. Alright, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin. So when, everything was ready, the minister said, oh, the stake that they have built, the people have built, is for a fat person. And this merchant is very thin. This is not the right stake for him. He appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about. So the king also saw, and the king also worried about, oh God, if he's so thin, then that stake will not work on him. What shall we do? When suddenly it struck to him, all that they needed was to find a man who was as fat as the steak that was made. So now the king forgets about who is actually to be blamed. Whether it is a person, whether it is a merchant, whether it is a dancer, and nothing. Only thing was, when the minister told him that this steak was not for a thin person and the merchant was thin, so now they had to find a fat person. The servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the steak, and their eyes fell upon whom? The fat disciple, who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. He had eaten so much that he had become fat. What have I done wrong? So he says, see, just tell me, what have I done? I am a sannyasi, I am innocent. He cried, that may be true, but it is a royal decree, order, that we should find a man who is fat enough to fit our stake. They said, and carried him to the place of execution. So they just, carried him up and took him to the place where the execution had to take place. You don't know what they will do next. So now the disciple remembers. What does he remember? The Guru's words. And he remembers that the Guru had said, this is a city of fools and you never know what they will do to you next. So now the disciple, actually regrets. He feels bad that he should have listened to the Guru and gone with him. While he was waiting for death, now he could do anything. If everybody was watching, he was taken to the place of execution. The king was there, and now just the sentence had to be passed that hang him till death. So he was just waiting over there. He prayed to his Guru, and the Guru was really very knowledgeable. Alright, he had a lot of, tricks and things. He knew how he could see the future. He could come to know about what was happening, with the disciple also. The Guru saw everything in a vision. So he had a vision and he saw everything. He had magic powers. He could see far and he could see the future, and he could see the present and he could see the past. So he could see everything. He had those magical powers. He arrived at the place of the execution to save his disciple, who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food, because the disciple had eaten so much. Such a greed for food had made him so fat that now he had reached this place. And these people were just foolish people. They didn't know what they were doing, what crime had taken place, who was to be, the faulty one, and who was being hanged, executed. So they didn't know anything. As soon as the Guru arrived, he scolded his disciple and told him something in a whisper. Now the Guru was a very knowledgeable man. He knew different things. He knew how to solve strategies. Whenever there was a problem, he had a new solution for it. So he came, he scolded the disciple, said something in his ear, he whispered something. Then he went to the king and addressed, "O wisest of the kings." This was all his plan. He said, "O wisest of the kings, who is greater, the Guru or the disciple?" Now the king saw, and the king said, "Oh, what is this happening? Of course, the Guru. No doubt about it. Why do you speak?" "Then put me at the stake first." Plan of Guru. He said, "See, please hang me first. Put me at this stake first. Put my disciple to death after me." See, he said, you have to kill him also. First kill me, put me on the stake, let me be executed, then my disciple. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor, "Me first." Now the disciple understood. Now, all right, this is a story. So this is a plan. So the disciple also said, "No, me first. I will go on the stake first. You brought me here first. Put me to death first, not him." The Guru and the disciple now got into a fight. What was this happening? They started fighting about who should go first on the stake. The king was puzzled. Now the king didn't know what was this happening. Why does the Guru want to die? Fools. They did not understand this was a plan. The king was puzzled by his behavior. He asked the Guru, why do you want to die first? We chose him because we needed a fat man. Now, how do you come in between? You shouldn't ask me any questions. Now the Guru said, see, you don't ask me any questions. Put me to death first. Replied the Guru. Why? There is some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand. Said, see, you are a wise man, you are a Guru. You have to make me understand, why do you want to go on the stake first? Will you promise to put me to death if I tell you? So the Guru said, all right. If I tell you what the mystery behind this is, will you put me to death first? The king gave him a promise, a solemn word. King said, all right. The Guru took him aside. Guru took the king aside and whispered out of the servant's earshot and whispered to him, do you know why we want to do this right now, the two of us? We have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you. So the Guru said, see, we are Guru and disciple. We keep going from one city to another. We have never found a city like this and a king like you. That stake, and that stake that is ready for execution, is a special stake. It is a stake of God of justice. It's new. It has never had a criminal on it. Whoever dies on this first will be reborn as the king of this city. After his death, when the rebirth takes place, whoever is executed on this first will be reborn as the king of this country. The king was listening, said, all right. And whoever goes next will become the minister of his country. We are sick of all the ascetic lives. He said, Guru said, that see, we keep moving around here and there. We are fed up of this type of life. Now let us be reborn as king and minister. So I am the Guru. I want to be reborn as the king. So I will go on the stake first, and he is my disciple. He'll be the minister. So he'll go next. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, my lord, and put me to death. So he says, see, king, I have told you everything, my lord. Now keep your promise. You have to send me on the stake first. Let me be executed first. Me first, remember? The king was now thrown into a deep thought. Now the king was a foolish king. He, kept thinking, all right, if he is reborn as the king and the disciple is reborn as the minister, where will I go? What about me? So he fell into a deep thought. He didn't want to lose his kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. He wanted to be a king in the next life also. He needed time. So he ordered execution postponed to the next day and talked in secret with his minister. So he said, see, Guru and disciple, we are going to execute you tomorrow. And then the whole thing was postponed. He went inside and called his minister and told him everything. It is not right for us to give over the kingdom to others. So now, they not bothering about the present life. They started thinking about the life that has to come. So they say, how can we give our kingdom to someone else? Let's go on the stake ourselves. They were ready to die themselves only. They said, let us go on the stake. The king will go first and then the minister will go, and we both will die and will be reborn as the king and the minister. And this was agreed by the minister. So he told the executioners, he called the executioners, the people who had to execute them to kill the Guru and the disciple, we'll send the criminals tonight. So he said, see, we will send the criminals tonight. I have postponed it, but we will do it tonight only. So I will send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first, and then the same with the second man. Those are my orders. And the executioners are told by the king that those are the orders. They didn't tell the executioners that the king would come first and then the minister would come. He said 2 people will come. First, whoever comes, you put him on the, execute him, and then the next one. Don't make any mistake. That night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison, released the guru and the disciple. Now the king and the minister planned. They went to the prison where the guru and disciple were there, and they, set them free, disguised themselves as the two. They changed their dresses just like guru and disciple, as arranged, alright, with the royal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. Just imagine, they were such big fools that the king and minister got themselves executed. The burglar had broken into the house of the merchant. The merchant blamed the bricklayer blamed the dancing girl, the goldsmith. Then again, the merchant was to be blamed. But they all were left aside, and the stake was there, had to find a fat man. They brought the disciple. The strategy of the Guruji worked, and the king, being a fool, felt, why should the guru and disciple be reborn as the king and the minister of my kingdom? If it is me, I'll only become. So he got himself and his minister executed. They both died. When the bodies were taken down and thrown to the crows. Now in that kingdom, it used to happen whenever the people were hanged, the dead body was given to the crows to eat. And vultures, the people panicked. Now when the dead body was thrown, they clearly saw, oh God, the king and the minister. What is this? They saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister. The city was in confusion. Everybody was perplexed as to how this has happened. Now what would they do? All night they mourned. First they became upset. They became sad. They started mourning. When you mourn and you be sad for someone's death. And discuss the future of the kingdom. Now they started discussing, we don't have a king, we don't have a minister, what will happen to the kingdom? Some people suddenly thought of the guru and the disciple. So there were some people in the crowd and they said, see, we need someone, some knowledgeable person, some wise man. A wise person is to be called. So let us search that guru and disciple and let us call them. They are the right people who can run the country and the kingdom. We people need a king and minister. Others agreed. They begged the guru and the disciple to be their king and minister. So just imagine, according to the plan, they had the plan, or just a plan which was not a truth. Alright, what had the guru said? That they would be reborn as the king and minister. But right now, in this life only, they were becoming the king and minister. This is the irony. Alright, all the people, whoever were there, they begged the guru and disciple to become the king. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of fools. Alright, both agreed to become the king and the minister. Alright, and they said, we will become the king and minister and take care of your kingdom only on one condition, that we have to change the old laws that were running. So from then on, night would be night and day would be day again, and now nothing would be sold for one doo-doo. It became like any other place like we live in. Wasn't this so humorous? And the king and his ministers were actual idiots. Alright, and this is a nice Kannada folktale from A.K. Ramanujan's Folktales from India. Wasn't this funny? I hope my explanation has definitely helped you. We'll meet in the next video. I'll even post the question answers video of this chapter with a short explanation. Till then, take care. Goodbye.